Hi YouTubers, this is J9 from J9studios. This is a beginning video of a series of videos I've decided to do. Basic art lessons. You can follow along with a drawing tablet and work in digital format like I do. Or you can just grab a piece of paper and go ahead and pencil and just start drawing away. The first things we're going to learn about is color theory. And this is a good place to start. First thing is the primary colors. Obviously a lot of you already know. If not, there's plenty of us out there who do not know. Your primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. One thing to note is on the color wheel, they're kind of like in a Y shape, I suppose you would say, from each other, or similar to a peace sign. At any rate, the secondary colors. These are basically colors that you get when you mix the two colors. And red and blue, you obviously get purple. The other ones, of course, are going to be blue and yellow, giving you green. And lastly, red and yellow, giving us orange. So again, these are our secondary colors, and just really quick, secondary colors are the colors that you get when you mix any two of the primary colors. You will see that also these are next to the primary colors on the color wheel. The next thing to come to note in this lesson is complementary colors. Complementary colors are any two colors that are opposite from one another on the color wheel. And one thing I've noticed, and either I'm remembering my lessons wrong from art classes, is that for some reason in digital art they're slightly off on the color wheel and they're not exactly across from each other. But unless I'm wrong, they're across from each other in the color wheel. And those three complementary sets to know, the basic ones, are the first one is red and green. The way that you can remember this is an easy Christmas, red and green. That's your first complementary color set. Your next complementary color set, which is going to be blue and orange, the way that I was taught to remember this. And if you are of my age group, maybe you remember, especially if you're a Cleveland sports fan, was the old Cavs colors were blue and orange. So that's one easy way to remember. So we've got red and green for Christmas, and blue and orange, the old Cavs colors. And lastly, the next complementary color set that you're going to want to remember is purple and yellow, which when I was being taught this, the way that we remembered was it was our class colors were purple and gold. So purple, yellow, close enough. That's how we remembered it. Another way that many people use to remember this is it's often colors associated with spring or Easter. The pastel colors, purple, yellow, etc. So those are your complementary colors. One thing that you would want to note with complementary colors is when you start to get into painting, and especially with like oils or acrylics, you oftentimes are going to use complementary colors to shade rather, darken the values of your colors. So if I wanted to make a red a little darker, I would add a green. You wouldn't actually want to add a black, although sometimes you can get away with adding black, as we may know. The next thing you see me doing here is I'm just sketching out the basic shapes. And first one is the circle. And I also want to point out that you'll notice that the thing with sketching is, you see that I'm not making a perfect circle by any means, and by no means am I a professional artist, I guess you could say, but I'm not bad. And what you'll notice is that I'm not getting the lines right the first time. Nobody will, unless you're some kind of savant or something. But the point is, you're going to pick and choose which lines you like and accentuate those lines and erase your mistaken lines until you have a nice, smooth, crisp surface. And that's basically all there is to sketching. Is, again, you're making short little strokes with your brush, pen, whatever, and you're picking and choosing the lines that best fit the shape that you're trying to draw. And this is where you're going to notice that your pencil has an eraser, or your computer program has the handy dandy eraser button, and you're going to be using that a lot. I oftentimes draw more with my eraser, so to speak, than I do the actual pencil, as I find that I just for some reason work in the negative space, which is something we'll cover in another lesson, but I for some reason seem to work in negative space a lot better. So I'll draw in the line and I'll try to get it as close as I can, but I'm doing a lot of erasing to fix the lines and and adjust the shapes outside of the shape that I'm drawing, which is basically what negative space is. Really quick here, what I'm doing is I'm showing the square in its three-dimensional form as a cube, and your light source is coming from the upper right-hand side. When you're drawing cubes and shading them, you'll notice that there's basically just 3 tones of the color, or in this case, the grayscale, and there's no blending in between because they have a flat surface that divides off by a sharp edge. So the top surface in this example would be completely light with no shading. The one on the right there, as you can see, is half and half, or gray, and the one that's completely on the back side of the light source is going to be completely black. That's obviously the simplest to draw and learn how to shade with. The next is the triangle, and we'll be drawing it as a cone, its 3D counterpart. What I'm doing here is I'm showing that the side closest to the light source, which is again going to be in the upper right hand corner, is actually going to be dark because it's actually the back side of the cone, or you're trying to represent it as such. So one thing you want to note is I'm going to shade and I'm going to follow the shape of the cone. So as you see there, you don't want just vertical lines. That's a common mistake. Like, for example, when people draw pumpkins, they oftentimes, when they don't know the basics, are going to draw vertical lines as opposed to round or elliptical shaped lines that follow the shape of the pumpkin. So in the same instance with the cone, you're going to follow towards the tip and come down towards the bottom, but not in straight lines. And it's going to take the shape that you're trying to draw. And like I said, closest to the light source, to give that illusion of the backside of it is going to be dark, and then it's going to very quickly go to the light, because that's going to be the next thing you're going to want is closest to the light source that isn't behind the object is going to be the lightest, and then the furthest away on the left here, as you can see, is the darkest. Obviously I'm not doing perfect sketches here, it's just more to give you an idea, and also I'm relatively new with digital art, so the blending techniques are much different than I'm used to with just a pencil and lead and my finger, but I'm getting the hang of it. At any rate, like I said, closest there to the right is going to be the most bright or no shading, and furthest away is going to be the darkest. And when you're doing shading, you'll find that blending is a very useful tool. It may not be apparent with my digital art format here, as I'm sort of struggling with it, but again, it's a lot easier with pencil and paper, and for some people it's probably even easier and quicker with the digital format. Lastly is the circle, and its 3D counterpart would be the sphere. Again, light source in the upper right hand corner, and basically it's the same concept. With whatever the shape is, you want to shade and draw with the shape. A circle doesn't have square lines that divide the different tones, or hue, or I guess it would be tone. At any rate, it doesn't divide it through square lines, it divides through the shapes and the lines that are the shape, in this case a circle. So you're going to want elliptical type shapes, and as you can see here, I'm using a little bit more of the digital element where I'm using whole colors instead of using the pen pressure, as I'm getting used to the pen pressure again. But so what I'm doing here is I'm just going lighter to dark, and again, you see the darkness around the top near the light source, because that's going to give the illusion that the object is actually three-dimensional, even though we're drawing clearly a two-dimensional format. So again, farthest away at the bottom there is going to be the darkest, and we're just going to blend that in, or depending on the art style, you could leave it as is, but I tend to like the classical style where I use a lot of blending and whatnot. So I'm just going through there and touching it up a little bit, and again, one thing you're just going to constantly improve upon your previous strokes. You're going to analyze it and say, okay, this line needed to come down and this one needed to come up, so you just again go through. Same concept of the shading. You're going to do a little bit and eventually you'll get it down, and hopefully I will too with the digital art, where I won't have to go over it 3 or 4 times and I'll just get it the first time. Maybe not, who knows, we'll see. But you're just gonna keep making corrections until you feel like you've got what you want. That's kind of where a lot of artists become sort of perfectionists, because at what point does that process stop? It's very hard to just say, okay, that's it, it's perfect, and put down my pencil. Sometimes I feel like I end up painting just because I'm done with it at that point, and I'm sure I can see, little corrections here and there that can be made and go back to it. And the other flip side of that coin is sometimes a painting can have one too many brush strokes, and sometimes it's best just to leave its flaws for what it is, and sometimes those flaws can be the most interesting part of your drawing. At any rate, I'm just showing you here on the screen some basic examples. You put the 2 shapes together, a sphere and a cone, and you have an ice cream cone. Also, we've all seen a million different types of balls, baseball, basketball, etc., and they're going to be shaded just like a sphere would be. Now, obviously, it all depends on the lighting and how strong the lighting is for you to get this. But, whether it be a very dark ball or whether it be a very light ball, it depends on how much light there is. But that's a very basic first lesson, and this is my first time trying to record audio directly to one of my videos, so hope I'm not too annoying. Hope I have a good pace and volume. Hope everybody was able to understand that. And if you enjoyed this video, please do like and also make comments, and please do subscribe. There will be more videos to come further detailing.